All right, so I wanted to cover the Piper's grip versus a standard grip, and I wanted to cover it a little bit differently by showing how the grip changes when you go from a regular low whistle, like a low F, to a low D, to a bass A, because I do have a bass A, and showing how your grip can shift to give you a little bit of extra reach. Um, so here's standard high D whistle, soprano D, and you've got your fingertips and everything. Everything, it's very easy to reach. I don't know of anyone who can't make the stretch on a high D whistle, except for babies. But once you start getting into, like, at least for me, around a low F, low G, low F, so here's a reviol, low F, that's when if you see, I can make the stretch with my fingertips, but it doesn't feel really comfortable, and I know it can get more comfortable with practice, but that's about the time where I start shifting to Piper's grip. So my Piper's grip looks about like that, and the thing with any grip is that you want it to be very relaxed, very comfortable, no tension. You don't want any tension in your playing. You want your fingers to be almost draped over the whistle, because if you're gripping, you're adding unnecessary tension. And I think I started out as a beginner. I was I was self-taught, and so there was no one to tell me, hey, ease up on your grip on your whistle, and it's just not something that you think about. But when you're starting out, you're missing holes, and there's this tendency to mash down to try to get that hole to seal, and it's 95% finger placement, maybe 99% finger placement. It's not about pressure. So if you're sealing the holes properly, if your fingers are positioned properly, you don't need to mash down, and it's just going to cause your hands to hurt, and it's going to kill your speed, because instead of just being able to lightly go really fast on the holes, you're actually your fingers are mashed down, like it's making your finger effectively have to travel more to like decompress and then get off the hole, rather than just being a very quick motion. So if you look, my fingers are slightly arched. Like I said, they're really just almost draped over the whistle. And sometimes I'll actually practice with tension in mind, thinking I want my fingers as loose as possible, just thinking totally relaxed fingers. Just to get used to that feeling of not gripping at all, because even now I have to fight against that tendency to grip the whistle harder, especially when I'm doing like a really fast, tricky passage. There's just a tendency to try to put tension into my hands to make that work, and tension in your hands is bad. And there have been passages where I could not get it. I couldn't achieve the rapid transition until I consciously relaxed my fingers. So that's if you take nothing else away from this video, light fingers, soft hands. Pretend like your low whistle is made of potato chips or very, very thin crystal or glass or something, because and that you'll crack it if you mash down too hard. If that helps with a visualization, it's just very soft fingers will help you out. So again, Piper's grip, I've got my middle finger pad here, over here, and middle finger pad here, and then this bottom hole can be covered. Sometimes, for a shorter whistle, I can do this. the basic thing is you don't want this crease really falling across the hole because it makes it harder to seal. Because obviously it's not a smooth surface. You've got a bump there. You're more likely to squeak. So however your hands need to be positioned to fall in the right places so that it's sealing, that's what you do. And it just takes a while to figure out. My first low whistle, it took me a couple of days maybe. The first time I got the whistle out, I was so excited, and I couldn't play a tune on it because I had so many squeaks, and I just couldn't get the hole sealed, particularly this hole on the bottom. So your fingers will settle in. Just keep practicing at it. Now as you go down, here's a low D. Your fingers, basically the angle of your piper's grip will change, kind of like that, as the hole spacing gets further and further. So you're here's the low D. So again, this bottom finger, the end pad is on there, and then these two, same thing. Like piper's grip is kind of in these center pads here. Same thing with my top hand. The holes are like right on the center pads, and the bottom one is on that, the actual end pad is on the hole. So. And then this is it's a heavier whistle, and the only place where I'm supporting, so when I'm supporting it, I'm mostly resting it on my thumbs, but you can see even here with all fingers off, I've got one finger anchored on this bottom hole, and that becomes, I think, you can see. Around there, this finger sort of drops down and anchors. Makes a slight difference to the tone, but not that much. And sometimes picking the whistle up just a little bit makes it rest more on your thumbs, and have less of a tendency to slide down. So I find that helpful. Again, you're going for light fingers. So if you're feeling like you're trying to grip it to keep it from slipping down, raise the angle a little bit. Now on flutes, you can actually, and sometimes with whistles, again, depending on your piper's grip, but when you get to bass whistles, you can't really use your pinky unless your pinky's just really long. You can see on low D, my pinky doesn't normally even touch there, but so you can. I've seen Michael McGoldrick actually putting his finger there, and kind of doing that sort of a dance. But with a flute, you'll actually have sometimes you'll have a key right there. So again, it's kind of a personal preference, but like I said, I found this works for me. Again, you just want it to be very relaxed. I said draping your fingers across rather than, like I said, not gripping. Just, like I said, easy, light fingers. So when we move on to a bass A, and this is why I tend to be a little bit skeptical when people say I have large hands, and I know my wife doesn't have, and I've never gotten her to try playing any of my whistles. But I'm a little skeptical of people when they say I can't play a low D. Unless your hands are just very, very, very small, I suspect you can, because I can easily play a low D with large hands, but I can also go down to a bass A with a piper's grip. And I could probably go further than this. I mean, you can see here are the holes here. And if you notice, I'm still playing. I'm right in that center pad, and then I'm playing here. And that's a bit of a stretch for me. And when I'm actually playing, you can see my wrist ends up being, instead of just being completely straight like it is for a low D, I tend to, in order to get it all the way down I actually have to cock my wrist just a little bit, and I don't like that. There's more tension for me playing a low D, a bass A, than there is for any of my other whistles. Which is why it's not my favorite to play, but I can see that one of the things that I've experimented with is instead of, if I'm here, instead of that, I can kind of shift, and you see how my wrist just straightens up. So what I did is I actually just shifted from the center pad here to the bass pad here, that first pad, like that. And I've seen people play the bass G with this. If you ever look at Hatao on Hatao, I think he's a Japanese player, and he's excellent. And he has or at least one point he had an Overton bass G, and you could see him playing with his arms straight out because it's such a huge whistle. But he has this bottom pad moved here. So for those with very small hands who are having trouble on this pad here, making the stretch on a low D, it's possible you could shift to this bottom pad here, and it gives you just a little bit of extra reach, allows your wrist to straighten up just a little bit. And the only issue that I have with this is when I shift like that, this part of my finger tends to fall across this second hole. So rather than the pad of my finger, a flat pad, easily sealing, I have a tendency to get leaks, and I think it's just a matter of practice. Because I can seal it there. So when I'm playing again, I can shift, and I think I just shifted to my regular Piper's grip. And part of this is and this is without any sort of offset or anything, because an offset could help you reach just a little bit further. But I mean, you can see I probably have, I could get a little bit further down the whistle if I had this first pad, second pad, third pad. That's probably maxing out where I could reach, and that might be a bass G. And again, if you had a little bit of an offset on that last hole, so this is the reason I've never gotten a bass G. I'm definitely pushing the limits of what I can grip. But again, you can see I've got small hands. I've got like regular, long. I've got long fingers, and I could technically, here's a low D. I could. I could do fingertips at a stretch. It doesn't feel comfortable, but I could do it. But with the Piper's grip, it's just, there's no tension. It's very relaxing. Whereas with the fingertips, I'm stretching my hands apart, or my fingers apart. And again, with practice, I'm sure it gets easier. But again, that's a preference for me. But when you get down to bass A, it's very difficult. I don't think you can. I'm not sure I can even do that with fingertips. So I hope that's helpful. But when you get your first low D whistle, just the trick is keep practicing, keep working at it, keep fiddling with your hand position. Look and see if you're not sealing it. Where are the holes falling on your fingers? Are they falling on these cracks, or are you getting them to line up with these pads? And if not, shift a little bit, and then eventually your fingers will figure out how to seal the holes. And especially if you look at the whistle and you can tell, if you can reach this hole here at a stretch and you can get your fingers over these other holes, then I suspect that, again, it's just about placement and getting used to finger positioning, and your fingers figuring out how to settle in, just like you had to do when you first started on a high whistle. So don't give up and keep practicing, and hopefully you'll get it. So I hope that's helpful.